Okay, so hello ulit, BSE. So we are down to our second topic for literary criticism. This is about the new criticism. So kanina, no, I have showed you guys the traditional approach in criticism. So now, let us identify what are or what is the new criticism all about. Okay po? So for us to really understand new criticism, let us identify the main principles of new criticism for us to understand its definition, how it works, and how does it value literary works. So first one, with the help of the universal meaning, let us identify what new criticism is in accordance to the universal meaning of it. Next po, the formal aspects of literature. Lastly, close reading rocks. So first off, so we have the universal meaning. So when we say new criticism, it was a formalist movement in literary theory that dominated American literary criticism in middle decades of the 20th century. It emphasizes close reading, particularly of poetry, to discover how a work of literature functioned as a self-contained, self-referential aesthetic object. Okay? So, next, or intindihin natin to, no? So, we have the new criticism. So, new criticism class, actually, it is about everything that you need to analyze. So, diba, back in the traditional approach, so, hinati siya sa dalawa, the historical, biographical, which focuses on the life of the author and the characters, and we also have the moral and philosophical, which focuses naman po on the intended outcome or influence in morality of the reader. Tama? So here naman in your criticism, it focuses on everything actually. Everything you need to analyze. That's why literary criticism was been formulated. Diba? Kasi diba, in literary criticism, we have first the literary analysis. We also have the another one, which is the personal view of the literature, no? So bago siya na-formulate or na-formulate po itong mga gantong argument nung na-formulate po si new criticism, because new criticism approved or shows that criticism or the literature should be proven enough or valid not just in one age but in the next generation. Okay, so mama na pong ibig nyo sabihin. Okay po, para mas maintindihan natin, let us continue. So actually class, you don't need to know the real backgrounds of this new criticism or the historical context of this meaning. So for us to analyze it for any sort of meaning or definition. So new critics affirm that the analysis should come solely from the words, characters, and actions in the book itself. I repeat, new critics po, ibig sabihin yung mga tao po na nagpapaganap or gumagawa nitong new criticism, they affirm that the analysis should be focusing solely on the word, characters, and the actions in the book itself. So, mapapansin natin lahat-lahat, no? Hindi lang siya nakafocus sa background, kundi po on the movement, the characters, and the words of the characters. So, it is our job, no? For example, we are new critic, let's assume. So, it is our job as a literary critic to examine all the things that the literature is all about. So, for example, our English teachers want us to do analysis on the context. By the use of new criticism, we should know everything. We should analyze the imagery, the metaphor, the allusions, and the word choice, the characterization to find the meaning of the novel. So, ganun kahirap si new criticism. Okay? So, we have the main principles of new criticism. What are those? Okay? So, the first one is the point of view in universal meaning. So what is this? The new critics believe that a deeper meaning and significance on the novel or poem is universal meaning. So, ibig sabihin po, the meaning of new criticism is fixed and inherent within the text. So, it is not outside or corresponding on the author, but the criticism is approved relying fixedly on the text itself. Okay po? So, it is does not change, and you as the reader have no part in creating meaning. You will only discover what is already there. Okay? So, para maintindihan natin, ang new criticism po, hindi po siya parehas ng historical approach that focuses on the background, but it do criticism within the text. Okay po? Not just in the characters, but everything about the literature. Kasi di ba mapapansin natin, even the settings, even po the places that the characters go through, the type of the words that they choose to speak. Okay, so yun po yung inaaral sa new criticism. So finding the meaning within the text is so important in the author's original intent or purpose of his or her novel. It should not be considered when examining the text. So, class, according to Donald Hall, the literary critic should not search for ultimate meaning in text by providing what the creator intended. It is important for a few reasons. So, ano po, mama, ano sinasabi mo? Sabi po ni Donald Hall, class, hindi daw po na maganda na kapag tayo po ay naggagawa ng literary criticism is sinesearch natin ang point of view ng iba't ibang tao or point of view ng iba't ibang perspective. So, bakit po? Number 1, authors do not always fully understand or are fully conscious of every details in their work. So, knowing that the authors are not always fully understood, kasi po mga authors, no, when you are going to do such interviews with the authors, hindi naman po lahat ng word per word na sinusulat nila or ina-analyze, pinuput into doon sa literature nila is in accordance po doon sa shallow understanding nila, but it is connected with the different phase of their writing. Okay? So, secondly, so knowing, class, that the authors pala is not conscious and understanding fully their work po, how much more pa tayong mga criticism lamang, or lalo na po sa new generation natin, the new critic. So, let's continue. Texts have meanings beyond their authors. Okay? Texts have meaning beyond their authors. Kaya, di ba, kapag tayo, for example, you read Bible, we have different interpretation. Kaya nga po, nabubuo po ang misunderstanding. Kaya po, nabubuo si misconception. Kasi po, people have different meaning beyond po doon sa naririnig o nababasa natin. Okay? So, criticism is very important. Not just knowing others' perception, but your own critic, though. Okay? Lastly, the text itself must support its own meaning. So, that are the reasons. That's why literary critics should not search for ultimate meaning on text, but we should be providing an intended critic on specific literature. Let's continue. So, let us analyze the definition of new critics under formal aspects of literature. So, new critics believe that literature needs to be examined and studied differently than, say, presidential speech or legal documents. So, ano naman po ito? So, new critics, class, in literature, we study specific items such as imagery, stanza breaks, and poems, and the theme. So, this represents those formal aspects of studying literature that distinguishes it from anything else. So, ibig sabihin po, it is also shown respect. For example po, class, sabi kasi dito, it's shown respect in music. For example, you would analyze the lyrics and theme as of to change music or songs differently than the country's music, like Luke Bryan. So, ano po yung ibig sabihin? Ito po yung example na binigay sa number 2. It is the same with literature. Poems cannot be analyzed using the same terms and definition as a play. Okay? So, ibig sabihin po, knowing the literature, knowing its background, knowing its author, it has different functions, different ability on how it could help the readers, and at the same time, it could not be compared because it has different backgrounds, reasons why it was created. Okay? So, let's continue. It also makes the analysis more scientific because a critic can focus on more tools of literary analysis such as rhyme schemes or definition of the motif. So when we say new critics class under the formal aspects of literature, since this evolved, no? Since this is not historical, biographical approach or the moral, philosophical approach po, sa new critics po, sabi dyan, di ba, it believes that literature needs to be examined and studied differently than, say, presidential speech or a legal document. We should give life to literature not because it was written or pinaghirapan, but it signifies something. It signifies meaning. Tama po? Kung babalikan natin yung mga literature na nabanggit ko kanina, no? Yung mga ginawa po ni William Blake, we also have sino-sino to? Si Milton, no? We also have William Langsland. With the help of their literature, it helps their community to be aired in different places and country, enable for them to realize what is happening on that specific place. Kasi diba, before we do not have technology or any form of communication. That's why with the help of literature, no? Dito lang maganda ang chismis no? Napapalagana po yung information para po makatulong sa iba. So that is about the new critics. So lastly, class, for us to realize or analyze what is the definition of new critics with the help of close reading rocks. So what is about this? Closely read and reread the text and examine the language and details in order to fully analyze the meaning. So that is new critic. Kung mapapansin natin, class, ang dami kong sinabi, pero pag sinabi lang po talaga nating new critics po, it is all about the text. So, actually po, enable for you guys to apply this type of approach, enable for you guys to apply new critic approach, you really need to do research. Okay? Not research sa Google, research sa YouTube, research, thesis, an approved document, not just approved by your teacher, not just approved by your a person known with that literature, but with the author. So imagine that. Okay? So that is new critics. So close reading racks class, you must closely read and reread the text, examine the language and details in order to fully analyze the meaning. So overall, a new critics class, para matapos na tayo sa new critic, you need to apply the analysis skill you've learned in English class, no? So apply natin yung lahat and find the support, the universal meaning using the text itself. That is what new criticism is all about. Enable for you to make new criticism, you have to apply the previous criticism that was been mentioned. That is new criticism. Okay? Parang curriculum lang yan, guys. Kapag po may pumasok na isang curriculum, ng bagong curriculum, bagong way para magturo, bagong approach, teaching techniques, kailangan mo siyang i-apply and then kailangan mo siyang i-connect doon sa mga previous na type of approach ng learning para po mas matuto ang mga bata, no? That is criticism. So, praise God, no? Teacher lang tayo. Hindi tayo poet, hindi po tayo satirist, hindi po tayo tawag dito mga writer, no? 'Di ba? Isipin natin kung gaano kahirap 'yan. Okay? So, let's continue. So, let's go to the reader response criticism. So, what is reader response criticism? Reader response criticism argues that literature should be viewed as a performing arts in which each reader creates their own possibly unique text related performance. So it stands in a total opposition to the theories of formalisms and the new criticism, in which the reader's role in recreating literary works are or is ignored. So simply, when we say reader response criticism, it is the view of the reader. Sabi nga dyan, di ba? It creates own, possibly unique text-related performance, no? So, malayo po siya sa new criticism na inaaral lahat. It should do research and thesis form of criticism, formalism lalo. Pag sinabi natin formalisms class, it is the application of all approaches and theory para po makapaggawa ng criticism, in which the reader's role is to recreate literary works, okay, that is ignored. So, literary reader's response in criticism class, it is a form of criticism where the reader's role po on making meaning is focused. I repeat, the role of reader response in criticism is that it gives meaning independence or depending on the approach or the response of the reader. So, unlike the new critics class who believe po or naniniwala sila that the meaning of the novel or player was inherent to the text and it's universal, it is studied, si reader response po, it emphasizes that it is the reader who actively make choices and engage with the text. So, it is the process that makes deeper meaning po or analysis. So, here in reader response in criticism, the reader is active. Okay? So, while the reader is active, he is making judgment by his own perception and understanding. Now, you may think, no, that, di ba, kapag tayo nagbabasa po ng, ang tawag dito? Pag tayo po nagbabasa ng mga short stories, lalo na yung mga bata, mga pamangkin natin pinsan, di ba? It is easy, okay, that we create critique on the ground of short stories. For example po, ginawan po natin ng literary criticism ang short stories, no? And then we find it a boredom or easy way. But no, actually, in reader response criticism, you can make it more creative. So how? This is not, this is about your response, and at the same time, it will examine the act of interpretation itself. So, bakit po? So, how the reader's experience with the text can vary, tama po? Pag pinagsama-sama kasi natin, di ba? Mga anak, isipin natin lagi ha. Pag sinabi pong criticism, pinagsama-sama po siyang analysis ng iba't ibang tao. Remember when we do criticism with tawag dito, ano ba yung inano natin nung midterm? Yon, yung A Martian Sends a Postcard Home. Kapag po tayo gumawa ng critic po doon, we could find that people or the reader response have different perspective in understanding, diba? So it is joyful in making such. So think of someone, no, para po mas maging joyful tayo kapag po tayo, for example, gagawa ng literary criticism. Think of someone, lalo for example yung author, pinapanood tayo na nagagawa po ng criticism sa kanyang work. Okay, it is important to see that reading can vary as well, the importance of the reading in creating meaning. And this is what reader response criticism is all about. This is about the freedom to choose words and type of response and understanding on that specific literature or genre. Okay? So, sabi nga po ni Larry, si Larry po ay isang author, no? Si Larry ay isang author which implements reader response criticism. Sabi niya dito, to deal with criticism or the reader response in criticism, we should be above the approval of others. So, ibig sabihin po, enable for us to apply the different approaches in reader response criticism. We should not consider the value or the understanding of other people, but rather we should consider what we know or be dependent, no? Be independent on the realization of our own. No? So, that is reader response in criticism. So, again, let us understand the new criticism, class? So we have the principles, new criticism, the universal meaning, the formal aspects of literature, and the close reading rocks. Okay? So, yan po yung mga enable for us to identify new criticism. And when we say reader response criticism, this is the view of the reader, or the reader performs or create their own possibly unique text-related performance. Okay? So, I hope you believe or you understand what we try to imply here. So, that is a basic rule or basic understanding, no, of what these types of criticism are. And I hope you learn. Thank you so much, class.